Hey guys, Moldran here, and today I wanted to talk about one of the most underestimated stats in Diablo 3, plus average damage. Now this stat comes on rings and amulets, and it directly affects your weapon DPS. And now why is this stat underestimated? Some of you might remember couple of weeks ago I made this video about attack speed and its importance. Like attack speed helps with sprint tornadoes, they tick more often. It also helps with Hammer of the Ancients, like big hitting attacks. So attack speed was great, but me and my PvP team did some further analysis of the situation, and currently we're gearing up for PvP or further endgame PvE content. And we compared different stats, and now for example if you take a PvP scenario, there are 3 range classes in this game. And then there's one class, Barbarian, that could be played as a range with weapon throw. So now if we assume that a ranged classes got a slight advantage in PvP over melees, we have 4 ranged classes. And now for example a fight, how does it work? For example, let's say a Demon Hunter against a melee Barbarian. The Demon Hunter is gonna kite, it's gonna hit and run. For example, it's gonna shoot an arrow, run back a bit, shoot an arrow again, and so on. It's called stutter stepping, and he's not gonna just stay there and do his normal DPS rotation, letting the barb hit him with Hammer of the Ancients. The Demon Hunter is gonna kite and hit and run. And now for attack speed, there's no point, for example, to get 3 attacks per second with this, because if he's like moving a half a second, then shooting, then moving half a second, then that attack speed would be wasted. And another example in PvP, players of course are more intelligent than mobs, so players are gonna run behind line of sight. We've already seen the arena maps. Players are gonna kite. You won't have 100% uptime. So this means that if you are on your target, if you finally are on your target, you wanna do as much damage as possible. And that's where plus average damage comes into play. Let me show you how strong it is. Now I underestimated this stat myself for quite some time, but yeah, as I said, we did some research and now I know a lot more about it. So for example, I equipped here already my PvP gear, because if you want to test items, if you want to test like which ring is better, you want to do the test with your PvP gear and while being buffed in game. So I compare, like I already got, one reason why I made this video is also this ring that I recently purchased for a very cheap price. Now most people are looking for trifecta items, crit damage, crit chance, attack speed when they look for rings, and can afford it of course. But I was like, okay, why not just give up attack speed and look for plus average damage instead? And I got a much better ring for a much cheaper price. So I'm gonna take this ring here. We only look at the offensive stats. It has strength and trifecta, attack speed, crit damage, crit chance. So I'm gonna look for a similar ring with, let's say, with basically the same stats, just with average damage instead of attack speed. And yeah, we find 2. This one seems to be closer. But this ring has 1 strength less and 2% crit damage more, so you could say this is almost the same. So now we are down to plus damage versus 8% attack speed. So I'm gonna link the ring and I'll compare it later. And one important thing is, when looking for average damage, never trust the auction house system. Let me give you an example. For example, let's take 40 average damage, 45, 5 crit. I'm gonna find an example. Actually 50 average damage, shows it the best. Okay, so for example with this ring. Now, how is average damage calculated? For example, let's take this ring, 33 to 59 damage. Alright. We need to get another example. Let's take this ring. This ring has 30 to 93 damage. So this means, how is average damage calculated? 30 plus 93 is 123, divided by 2 is 61.5, rounded up to 62. So if we go here, for example, to 60, the ring bond for it is still here. If we go up to 61, it's still here. If we go up to 62, it's still here. And if we go up to 63, it's gone. Okay. But if we go back to 50, look at this, 25 to 42 damage. Now 25 plus 42 is 67, divided by 2, you already see, this must be less than 50, but it's still showing up with 50 average damage. But in reality, it's doing less damage. And another problem with the auction house search here is, for example, if you look for average damage 20, it's showing this, for example, it's showing a ring with 21 minimum damage. But this ring doesn't have any max damage. It's actually 21 divided by 2, 10.5 minimum damage, but it shows up as 20. So here, with the search system for average damage, really need to take care and always link them to chat and test them out in game first, because there it's going to show the accurate DPS. But yeah, back to the test. And another thing why my thoughts about attack speed and plus damage changed so much, it's not just the PvP or hit and run thing, it's also, just think back at the patch, the last patch, where rings and amulets were buffed. Like before the patch, I was only looking at trifecta items. Everything else I didn't even consider. So I was only looking for attack speed, crit chance, and crit damage. But after the patch, what changed? Rings and amulets are able to roll 63 stats now. For example, an amulet can roll 10% crit now instead of 8.5, and 100% crit damage instead of 65%, which was the previous max. Same with the rings. Rings can roll 6% crit now and 50% crit damage. Before it was a lot less. But what happened with attack speed? Attack speed is still the same. Attack speed is still hard capped at 9%. And why did Blizzard do that? Because certain abilities like sprint, run like the wind, they benefit too much from attack speed. And yeah, so they didn't scale attack speed with other stats. So this means, and of course they also scaled average damage. So this is one reason why now average damage is better than attack speed in most of the cases. But yeah, now if I want to compare this ring, I need to get my buff first. Okay, so this is like my PvP gear. And now I'm just gonna see what this ring does compared to mine. Plus 6.2k damage. So just this plus average damage instead of 8% attack speed gives me 6.2k DPS. Crazy. This ring would be a lot cheaper as well. Because people only look at trifecta items. Like I got this ring for a very cheap price, considering how good it is. The same ring with 8% attack speed instead of average damage would have cost 4 times as much. Just to give you an example. I'm not the only one going for average damage. For example, in my PvP team, we got Detox, another barbarian. He's also playing a throw barb. And he, for example, he thinks the same. He says that the throw barb, he doesn't have 100% uptime. He doesn't really need to stack attack speed that much. But if he hits, he wants to hit like a truck. So here, for example, we got an amulet, no attack speed, but the other stats are insane. Same with this ring here. I mean, he got 33 to 63 damage, 87 strength, vitality, 51 all resist, 330 life on hit, 40% crit damage, 6% crit chance. No attack speed, and yeah, this ring is just really, really good. And yeah, last but not least, I also want to show you the price, because things like that are always about the price. Right? So again, let's look for a ring like this. Let's say strength, attack speed, crit chance, crit damage. How much do they cost with attack speed? The cheapest one is 90 million gold. The cheapest one is 90 million gold. And now if we make it 40 average damage, the cheapest one with exactly the same stats, but just with average damage, which is even more DPS than attack speed, 5 million gold. And that's how you can save money and get a really strong character with really high DPS. And the DPS, like it's not just for hit and run. Like the actual DPS, as you can see, as you saw before in my game, the actual DPS was higher. So even if you have 100% uptime with attack speed, the plus average damage is still doing a lot more damage. So yeah, especially if you don't have attack plus average damage on a single item, try to get it at least at 1. Try to get it on 2 if you can. Like for example, ring and amulet, and yeah. Try to get a really good combination of the stats, and yeah, hope you this video was useful for you, and yeah, see you guys. I'll be back.